Welcome back to What I've Learned podcast with Mark Blair, your host, and co-host Grant Crofeld. Today we've got a really special guest and a good friend. His name is Charles Tamou. He's the leader of a very powerful, well-known real estate team out of Macomb County, Doctors of Real Estate.
Trying.
But we're going to dive in. He's going to tell us a little bit more how that even came about. And so, Charles, welcome. Thank you for being on here today.
Guys, appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory so we know. Tell our listeners, how did this all start? How did you get right up there to the top?
Needed to make some money and needed a summer job. It was, I think I was 17 or so. I was looking for a summer job. Went to, I saw an ad in the paper. My dad told me to just go be a real estate agent. I might have been 18, something like that.
Just to get out of the go get a hobby.
I wanted a job. I wanted to make some money.
You got 1 year to leave, so you need to get cracking.
Yeah, I wanted to make some money, so I went over to Century 21, did an interview, found out what I got to do, started taking the classes, got my license. I think I got the license at 19.
So back then, how many hours was this course? Do you remember?
40 hours.
It was still 40 hours.
It was 40 hours, but it was in person.
So
it was like 5 days straight, weekdays, 9 to 5 type thing.
And you were only 17 at the time?
I might have been 19. I can't remember exactly. It was 2006. That I do remember. That's when I got the license officially.
Right. Young.
Yep. It wasn't online. Read the book back page to page, back to front, or front to back, twice.
Yep.
Yep.
Be weird to read it back to front.
And I think I might have even taken the test twice, actually.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of it, or
I failed the first time.
You're like, I can outdo myself. This is 99 my butt.
Yeah, exactly. No, took the test, eventually passed it. The first couple of years, I didn't do much. I actually interviewed here after I got my license, but I couldn't afford to work here.
Takes a while.
Yeah.
You got to work your way up.
What's a monthly compliance fee? Yep. So, no, it was cool. And then I ended up working somewhere on like 7 in Gratiot.
Okay.
Didn't do much with it. I was going to school. And then
what were you taking at school at this time? What are you taking in school?
So I just had finished high school. I was in college. I was doing 06. I was doing political science. Okay. And then I ended up, by the time I got back into real estate, I had switched it from political science to economics to accounting, and then ended up here.
Okay.
Yep. And wanted to go to, like we were talking about earlier, wanted to be a lawyer.
Want to go to law school, yeah.
That was the plan.
Yep, that was the plan.
Well, you dodged a bullet.
Getting into tax law, I'm glad I didn't do it.
Yeah. Tax law, jeez.
Yeah, you would be a really boring human being at that point, right?
Yeah, or in trouble.
Yeah.
If I didn't get boring.
The FBI's taking him down at that point, right?
No, I'm glad everything worked out. This is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think what I wanted to also kind of share with our audience today was that I know you personally, so I mean it's really easy to talk to you and catch up with you, and I always appreciate all the advice that we kind of share back and forth. But a lot of people don't know at what context of business that you're actually accomplishing today. Tell us, your team is pulling in how many deals? You guys are killing records, and it's phenomenal what you're actually accomplishing. I think it's really it's not really talked about. Like, people don't really know what Doctors of Real Estate has really accomplished.
Yeah, so we've got a few guys in Texas, and then we've got, I think I was just counting it today, we're up to a couple of them that are in the office. They're dialing, but they're not officially licensed yet. They're in the middle of it, taking their tests. So I think we're at 27 realtors now, between a couple ISAs and the licensed realtors that are actually out there selling and growing and trying to grow from there. So we're here in Shelby Township, Michigan. We're in Austin, Texas. We're working all kinds of stuff. We're calling expireds, FSBOs, working leads. I'm doing a lot of like internet leads. And
all right, you're way too modest. I'm going to have to jump in here. This guy's done over $60 million up to this year, and we're only on May the 13th, okay? So I want to give you a huge pat on the back. That's a massive accomplishment.
Thanks. I got to double check that. It might be in the 15s.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people don't realize there's offices locally here in our vicinity that have 70 or 80 agents, and it takes them a year to hit $60 million.
Yeah.
This guy has created a $60 million business within 5 months of the year.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break it down a little bit. So let's go way back there when you kind of first started. You started as a solo real estate agent, I assume? Is that how you kind of
I
took
came
off?
in 2009. I was getting ready to move and get an apartment. I was dating my wife at the time, And of course, I needed money, so it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back into
Dates
this real
aren't
estate.
cheap.
Yeah,
You know
they're
that.
not. They were getting expensive, and I wanted to get back into the real estate thing. So I came in, started working. I wasn't doing much. I came in, I thought my phone would just ring. I'm like, all right, everybody's gonna know me. I wasn't dressed right. I wasn't doing, real casual. And in the beginning, when you're coming in, and there wasn't big teams back then, there wasn't a lot going on. I think this brokerage might have had 100 and some people in it that were not all coming in and out.
Right.
A lot of good people that are still here today that helped me out over the years. But yeah, I came in, started there, got with a partner eventually.
So this is a critical move right now. A lot of people don't understand how valuable it is to bring on a mentor.
Yeah.
So when we talk about teams and we talk about these situations, like it doesn't really matter what business you're in, whether I'm a CPA or I'm a title company or I have a franchise or whatever the case is. I know we got a fan club back here, but what's really interesting is that a lot of people don't take advantage of the mentorship option in any given business.
Yeah, correct.
So that's what you started to do, and I want to point that out because I talk about it every so often. You'd start taking advantage of a mentorship option of someone showing you the ropes, teaching you things so you can get this ball rolling, get this business started, pay for those dates efficiently, and not have to split the entree anymore. But what does it look like? How long does it take for you to kind of start to see your business gain some traction where you start saying, hey, this is really something good now?
It was a couple years. So I think from 2009 I started to make anything. I know my 1099.
And we're talking about a rough market starting from 2008. This is a massive recovery moment for a lot of parts of the United States.
If anybody knows John Pearden, Stacy's husband from the Pearden team, when I walked in the building and I was getting introduced around everybody from Janine Seeley, he goes, "What the hell are you doing getting in the business now?" So it was that bad.
Yeah.
There was like 23 and a half months worth of inventory at the time.
Right.
And to put that in perspective, we're at like, what, a month and a half or something right
Macomb County Macomb County was down to half a month.
It's been fluctuating, but it's floating
Right
anywhere
around
from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
And that's for anybody that doesn't know real estate or anything, that is meaning that if we were to stop putting any houses for sale on the market today, all of them would be sold in half a month. So in 15 days, every house in this area would be sold in 15 days.
Yep.
Right.
That's how few houses are for sale now. And Charles was saying 23 months.
2
that
years
means
worth of
2
inventory.
years it would have taken to sell those houses.
Yep. But it was good timing for me because I wasn't coming in like rocking it out or anything anyways. I took like a year to
you
learn.
came in with a Def Leppard t-shirt and then you decided to dress up a little.
Maybe not that bad. I was still okay, but I just didn't know how to prospect, didn't know who to call. And then I met some good people here. And then, you get to know people. And I kind of came from a background where business was always important to us. Like my family was in business. I just didn't know how to put all the puzzle pieces together. And that's where I kind of grew up and learned how to do.
You had the good foundations to get started off with some good examples.
I had some good people to look at. They weren't all doing the good things, but they were all making money. And I kind of took bits and pieces of everything. And then when I got into this thing, went to a couple seminars. And I was like, I think I can really scale this. Like, this could be a lot bigger than what it is. Mm-hmm. And it just started in baby pieces like that.
What year do you start envisioning or start incorporating in your mind that I'm going to start scaling up now?
So
how long does that take you to start even considering that?
In 2011, around that time, give or take, is when I wanted to. I was on a team before.
So you were licensed in 06, right?
06.
And this is now 5 years ahead now.
Well, January 09, I came back into the business.
Right.
And I was still dabbling with other things.
Right.
A couple of years into the business.
By the way, that's terrible math. That was 3 years ahead.
Yeah. A couple of years into it is when I was like, all right, I'm going to do this on an individual level pretty big. And then we were doing a team thing. We weren't really thinking of hiring a bunch of agents or any of that. It was kind of like more a group of 2-3 of us that were like, we got to do the best that we can do and build it from there. And then I left that. I ended up going independent. And like between 2014 2015, I was one of the higher producer independent agents here. I think I might have even done the most transactions as an independent agent. I hit 99 transactions, I want to say, in 2015. And that's in 2015 is when I sat down with my assistant. I'm like, we can blow this up into a huge team. We ended up leaving the company. We came back eventually. Right. But when we left, we started recruiting. And I was up to 2 agents. Maybe between 1 and 2 agents is when I came up with the Doctors of Real Estate. And it was actually first Doctor Real Estate.
Right.
It wasn't the Doctors of Real Estate.
There was an advert with the white coat.
Correct.
And was it a little bag as well?
Yeah,
or?
if you still look them up on Google, you'll see the the ads
white
where
coat?
where
I still
Charles
saved
is in
all the
in
material.
the white coat.
Well, we were doing the
You look like one of
Comcast.
those soap opera doctors.
Yeah. I was doing the Comcast commercials too, so
Right.
it was cool. A lot of people would message me. That's a lot of exposure marketing, and it really worked really well, but it wasn't like...
You got to have like a brand. That's your brand.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
a cool.
And-
That's actually a really cool brand.
Yeah, and when we did it, I was like, this could go really bad. I'm probably going to
Yeah.
look like an idiot in front of everybody, but I'm going to do it anyways because everybody's going to
But
remember
you'd
me.
be surprised what people like out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Well,
many
I
people
kinda figured-
have like accused you of false marketing or saying
One person.
One person.
One person called me really late at night and was like, I just saw your ad, and you can't wear that white coat. You're not a doctor. And I Facebooked her, and I was like, this person has literally nothing to do to call me at like 10:30 at night or whatever it was just to yell at me.
Always investigate your opponent.
Well, the
Key
funny
advice.
thing is she wasn't even a doctor to get
Right.
upset about it. But
Right.
hey, this maybe she just needed to talk to somebody.
Hey, it's okay. Everybody has a bad day, man. Everyone has a bad day. No big deal.
But you know what? And then it took off from there. And of course,
Yeah.
if you know anything about big corporate America, you have to build stuff to scale. And that was the goal. It was like, all right, how can we scale this? How do we get into all the other businesses that come with it? And how long is it going to take to do? And I
Right.
was always really good with spreadsheets and math and all that. So that part kind of just built with it. And
I think that's one of your big advantages.
yeah, I'd say
Because
so.
number crunching is one of the best things that corporate people do. So when you think about your directors of a company, they literally just get up in the morning, have coffee, and look at numbers, and then give some feedback.
It's literally what I do every
Literally
day.
what it is, yeah.
So we got it to the point now. I mean, I've been doing spreadsheets since like 2010 for the business. But back then it was like, all right, how do I get 10 transactions? And then it just started getting a lot thicker, a lot more detailed, a lot more complex. And now I got it down to the point where it's all kind of merged on. It's a forever database. It's live updated all the time. Anytime a transaction goes in there, the system knows year to date what the averages are. The averages are constantly changing with the market, so you can kind of get a really good idea of where you're going, and it's pretty much plug and play there. Then the rest of it is just learning how to be a good team, a mentor, a recruiter, how to provide business to people, how to make sure they're busy and actually making money, because that's another big thing too, right? I mean, a lot of people do it, but you really got to get people to make money for it to keep growing.
There's so many major roles that you're discussing right now. So you go
Yeah.
from this solo, independent individual, doing really well, hitting great
Yep.
numbers, and now you're taking on this role of taking care of people.
Yep.
You're going to pour into them. Now you're going to also make sure they make money. It sounds like a lot of responsibility, and it's definitely a lot more work. So did your hours of work, go through the ceiling? Were you working 7 days a week at this point, or
I've always
or are
worked.
you right now?
Even when I first started in real estate, I had other jobs. So I always worked either a midnight shift job or at a retail place, plus doing this. So I always had hours. I don't remember since I was a kid that I haven't worked 6 or 7 days a week. And at one point, actually, this is not even the worst thing I've done. The worst thing I think I've done is actually run a gas station. That was probably about the hardest thing.
Yeah.
As far as rigorous hours
That's
go.
actually a really tough gig.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
a
think
bad.
people realize
it's
how tough
not
that
hard
gig is.
because you're just sitting, but I mean, you're doing stuff. But that
You're
was
sitting
really
there and you're tempted by all the snacks in front of you that you're trying to sell.
well. That was a problem, and it was just rigorous hours. You have to be there every morning, open
Right.
up. You got to shut down, and when you're managing one of those, you got employees coming in and out.
Right.
You got to worry about all kinds of crap. I'd say that was harder than what I do now.
Definitely.
What I do now is tough, especially when you have kids and you start to grow a family. But for anybody that's young or starting out, that's the best time to kind of blow up with it because that's where you can put your most hours in. But yeah, you definitely have to be willing to put in the hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to work 7 days a week, especially in the beginning. I just started taking Sundays off recently, and I don't get every Sunday off. There's Sundays where I have to go in or do stuff or jump on the
Right.
computer because that's another thing too. When you start growing, you're building up all these other businesses. So every time you start a new business, you're starting from scratch in that business. Like we just got into mortgages,
Right.
and now I'm like the bottom of the pit, like cold calling mortgage guy that started
It's
out.
so
from-
different,
yeah,
right?
it's so
Yeah,
different. So you're always
Takes
doing
you back
something.
to your old days of when you were
Yep.
17 or 19 or whatever it was.
Correct. Yeah, I mean it's going a lot faster now. Just brought somebody on to do that with us, and
Mm-hmm.
But you've been through the process now.
Been through
so
the process,
You
but-
know what to
yeah.
expect,
Yeah.
kind of.
but every time I start something, I want to get in on the bottom too because I kind of want to see what they're doing and how they can do it to build it. And of course, being in real estate helps because I've learned so much about it. But yeah, it kind of all flows in. But you're working nonstop.
Right.
I think I'm going to keep going for about
I
another
know-
10 years.
I know I've said this before, and I don't think that people outside of real estate really realize that being in real estate and building like a team or a brokerage, anything like that, and you scale it, these are skills that you can literally take to any platform
Correct.
in any business, and you can replicate. You could say, "Hey, I need you to sell this hand lotion." All right, I can start a business from scratch. I know what the beginning to end looks like, from scaling, from starting to being able to run the numbers, run people, manage people. It's real estate's one of the most well-rounded, all-encompassing ways to learn how to be an entrepreneur, because you wear so many hats when you jump in. Everything's on you.
Absolutely.
Everything's on you.
Yeah, if you really want to test someone's true character, you put them through a commission-based job, and then you set someone up to lead them on a commission-based job.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's tough
to solely be on commission, and until you get to the point, because there really has to become a point where you can start to predict your income and your closings. But if you're not at that point, it's a rough ride early on when you're really having to fight for all the deals and try to prospect and get as many deals as possible, and you don't know exactly when that next check's coming in.
Right.
That's a tough place to be in, and it's not for the faint of heart for somebody to not know. Like, it's very easy, and we see it all the time. People leaving the business because they just can't handle the holding
roller coaster.
At the end of the day, they're holding their success in their hand, and it's solely on them to be successful or not. Versus a job where I can show up, be told what to do. If I'm working for somebody else who took that risk, and they're the ones that took everything solely in their hand, and now they're just paying me every 2 weeks to do exactly what they're telling me to do, and that's a safe route. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but there's something completely different about what you said, commission-based job, where you don't get paid if you're not working. Like, you have to do the work. You have to be good at what you're doing. You have to figure it out in order to take cash home.
Does the thought of buying a home stress you out? Call Elementary Lending. The mortgage process can be stressful and intimidating, but we are not your parents' mortgage company. Our cutting-edge technology has simplified the mortgage process, and our licensed experts are available 24/7 to educate you from start to finish. Call 8332-APPLY now and get an answer in minutes. The process has never been easier. That's 8332-APPLY now, or apply online at elementarylending.com. Elementary Lending, home financing simplified. Equal housing lender, NMLS number 1321438.
The greatest thing about it, and I'm sure Charles has seen, he's been able to scale to such a level, and his income there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling when you do it and you figure it out. Like, you're going to be able to do the mortgage thing. You're going to be able to expand and do basically anything you want. Expand the team to 50 agents, 100 agents. Like, at this point, there's just zero ceiling. When you're an employee, I don't care if you become the CEO of Microsoft, you have a ceiling. There is somebody's telling you what you're getting paid. There's a board of directors that decides your salary, your bonus. You can make the company $500 billion in 1 year, and you're still capped at what they say your ceiling is. When you're taking it on in yourself and you eventually grow to what you want, and you're the one in control of it all, there's no ceiling, especially in the sales business.
I agree.
Yeah. And that's the crazy part. It's like, and I'm constantly noticing when you're growing anything that's going to scale, you hit these peaks, and then to go over that peak, you got to go through another rigorous adventure, right? So it's like,
right.
And I think I mentioned this in John's podcast, I remember going 6 months, I was looking at my spreadsheets, because I'm still selling. I'm doing mostly listings here and there. But a lot of my stuff, I give it away. Almost everything that I get in, I just give it to one of my agents. And I remember sitting there looking at it and looking at 6 months worth of work, money put in, money coming out, employees, this, that, benefits, all that stuff. And I'm going, wow, like I net profited only what I produced. So I could have just got rid of the whole thing, just went out and sold, probably had a lot more relaxed of a lifestyle, and made the same money.
What kept you motivated to keep going after you saw that? Because I know that's making you think.
Yeah, well, it did at the time. At the time, I was like, and I had a kid at the time. It was my first kid, and I was like, wow.
Well, you still have the same kid right now.
Well, I have an additional one. And now
Just making sure.
Now I have an additional one.
He traded in. He traded.
You didn't lose it or anything.
No,
You still
no.
got the same kid.
I got the same one. I got another one, and I got another one on the way.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. But at the time, I was like, man, like I could have spent time with my kid. this was horrible. It was probably the worst feeling I've ever had of guilt, right? But then you look at it and you analyze and you're like, hold on. You got to look at your numbers again. You got to look at the future, what's going on. You start putting everything together. You backtrack. You get better. There was a mistake there on my part, right? Because I wasn't tracking something properly.
Right.
And that's part of it. And then you get better at it. But then the reward later on became even bigger than that, you know.
And I think when you're looking at it, and like you said, you know, when you looked at your net number, I think it's the growing pains of you're gonna, like you said, there's these peaks, but there's gonna be these valleys where it seems like did I just backtrack?
Yep.
And sometimes in order to actually, like, if you're climbing a mountain, it's not just a constant straight up the hill. Like, you're going to hit points in the mountain where you have to go back down a little bit before you hit that next part to go back up.
Or go sideways.
Yeah, or you have to go around a little
right?
bit you have to go around. You're gonna run into these obstacles along the way up the mountain that it's gonna seem like you're backpedaling or you're not making forward progress, or you know, you were making so much progress and it was built and you were going so quick, and then you start to slow down and it seems like you're, you know, I'm not getting there. But then you eventually push through and you get back on that upward trend.
Right.
Yep. And you just get better at kind of putting that puzzle together. And now we're at the point where now we're getting better at recruiting the agents. Now we're beefing up the administrative staff. Right. So it's like now we're adding more administrative.
So are you delegating a lot more than you had before?
A lot more, yeah.
How long did it take you to start that level of delegating? How did you start that?
So it's been 6 years, right, that we've been running on a team. So it took 6 years.
Literally, yeah.
Well, everything's been delegated in bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. But what happens is you're wearing multiple hats. So if you've ever looked at an org chart, there's all these different roles on an org chart, especially in real estate. Thanks for the water, by the way. But there's all these different roles in an org chart, right? You might wear 2 or 3 or 4 of those hats of each role and do each position, and so does your staff. And then the bigger and bigger you get, the more revenue you're bringing in. Now you can start splitting that. It's like, okay, well, you were wearing 3 hats. I want you to wear just these 2 hats. Or I want you to completely switch up, and it's almost like a promotion for your employees. And you're going to start doing this. You're going to take on a bigger role in the company, and you're going to wear these 3 hats. Give those 3 hats to those girls, or go out and get an assistant. That's what I have 2 people that help me run my company.
When did you get your first assistant?
2015.
Okay.
When I was independent.
So when you hired this assistant, how quickly did you feel they were a real benefit to you? How many months did it take till you said, I think they kind of got it. This is really helping me out.
So,
because some people dread that training time for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is.
So that's the difference of what I did. Yeah. I'll tell you what I did. I had prepped my business before I had an assistant. I had started separating everything and prepping it for like a 5-year-old to do it. So I started making drives on my computer, separating. I made it wasn't the most professional looking stuff.
But not on a floppy disk or anything, is
it?
No,
it wasn't.
We're talking about Google Drive. All right.
No, I mean,
we're still current.
I did have a USB stick,
right?
You know, but no, it was actually Dropbox.
Okay.
It wasn't even Google. But I started prepping that back in 2014 to bring on help, because I was like, okay, well, I'm going to need help to take this even as an independent agent to the next level.
So you basically laid out how you wanted things done for the next person.
I laid out a foundation for it.
You built the systems.
I built a system around it, like a small system, and then brought that person in, and that person built more systems around it. And that's essentially how it went.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you're talking about Jessie, right? And
Jessie.
I've heard the story from her that she was referenced to go talk to you because you had been looking for an assistant, and it was from her side of the story. Was basically she walked in and was like, when do I start?
Yeah, so that's almost exactly how it went. So I posted something on we had the intranet page. We didn't have Facebook at the time for the office. I said, looking for an assistant. It was like 6 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was so stressed out. I was breaking my job down into like 3 major categories a day. So I'd start at 6 a.m. and then I'd go the whole day, right? So I woke up, it's like, 5-something, 6 a.m. I'm like posting online, need an assistant. Kathleen Garden from our office knew this girl, Jessie Aquino. She responded back and was like, hey, I got this girl. Can we share her? At first I said no, because I was like, I need somebody full-time. I don't think I can get somebody to share. She goes, well, I want you to meet her anyways. So I met her, I think, the same day or the next day. It might have even been the same day. She came in. She was wearing like DC comic shirt or something like that. I don't know. It might have been a Marvel.
You're
Spider-Man.
hired. That's your kind of person,
Well,
man.
that's the funny part because I had a Green Lantern notebook, right? So I said, well, I really need to talk to Kathleen before I hire you. So I got to really think about this. I'll let you know. I'm driving on Mound Road, and she calls me and goes, hey, what happened with my job? I said, well, I got to talk to Kathleen. She said, well, I already told Kathleen I'm going to work for you, so I'm just telling me when I'm starting. And she kind of forced her way into it. So I was like, all right, well, I guess you're hired then.
Clearly, you're hired.
Clearly, I don't have an option here.
Yeah, but now she's the team manager, right? Like she manages.
Jesse Aquino and Eugene Flor basically manage the whole operation. You know, she's wearing a couple hats, he's wearing a couple hats, and together they're running.
How much
the whole
time is
system.
that giving you back now? In reality,
In reality, it gives me almost all my time back because you have, well, not all of it, but like let's say a good 80% of it. If I had to take a guess. They trained with me forever, right? So he started with me at the end of 2015. She started with me, I want to say at the end of 2014 or beginning of 2015, somewhere in that ballpark. Might have been March. She's going to get so mad when I forget the date. But I'm really bad with dates. I'm bad with birthdays. I'm horrible with names, just for the record.
at least you remember what she was wearing. There you go.
I do remember that. How can you forget?
Something to work with.
But, I mean, she's essentially been training that whole time. And Eugene was my first agent that I ever hired. Jesse was my first admin I ever hired. He ended up turning into what became my best friend, right? And all three of us kind of started it together, and we ran with it. He was just an agent. She was just an assistant. And then we just built it all, you know. And when you get to know somebody like that, they become like family. So you trust them with everything, right? So she's got access to everything. He's got access to essentially everything that I have. I think he's even on my trust. So...
And when you first hired Jesse, right, your first assistant, and probably from every person on that you've put onto a salary, right, where you're having to pay them X amount every year. There's that's kind of one of those like almost like those little dips where it hits you because you're losing this chunk of money immediately, and you start seeing that, and I see the hesitation from a lot of people. They're like, well, I don't know that I really want to give that money out because they don't necessarily see the benefit of what it brings in the future, right? There's that kind of first little like slow down of like, I got to pay that money out. But how long did it take for you to recoup that and then get on top of that exponentially with the time and the resources that you got from that?
When I first started, I never really calculated how long it took to get. I'm sure it took effect almost immediately because I had it all kind of all set up, and I had her doing stuff while I was on the road. It got to the point, man, where I was on the road driving, and I still remember it's Mound Road again. I was on Mound Road with my laptop open, connected to my phone. I'm driving 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, whatever it is, and I'm typing out an addendum on my computer while I'm driving. It got to that point. I used to take like 4 or 5 families out at night to show them houses. It was too much, you know, and I continue doing that. To answer your question, I think the real trick behind that is it depends what you want. So if I was starting from scratch and I was independent and I wanted to gain more time with my family, I could technically go in and say, look, I'm going to give up between 30 and 60,000 of my income. Who cares? I'll continue to produce the same amount, but I'm going to get all this time back with my family because now I'm just going on appointments. I'm not doing the work in between the processing. Yeah, we all know in real estate or in any business, when you're doing paperwork, that could take 3, 4, 5 hours. You're negotiating and showing houses or selling houses on listings, and you're getting rid of all the paperwork side for the most part. So that could buy back a lot of time with your family, and you can use that to leverage time with your family. But if you want to scale in business, that's different because now you're bringing them on, but you're not bringing on an employee. You're not bringing on an employee to gain more time necessarily with your family. You're bringing on an employee to gain more time to go out and make more money. Right. And there's different ways to do that, especially in real estate. You have a vast array of things you can do to make more money in real estate, like Mark flips houses, right? So that's another thing you could do. And I'm doing a lot of that now, too. I've gained that more as soon as I brought on a second kind of manager. Eugene started last year in March, kind of overseeing a lot of the recruiting and training. And then I started getting into flipping houses a lot more. Before I was just buying rentals, barely doing any flips. But I gained that time, so I was doing that. But it really depends what you want to do with your time. I'd say the most efficient use of your time when it comes to business, if you're going to hire anybody, is to make sure that you have a plan of what you're going to do when you hire them. So it's not just, I don't like doing paperwork, I'm going to go hire somebody because I hate paperwork. You could do that, but if you're looking at financing and scaling, that's not going to work out because just bringing somebody on to do paperwork and then not doing anything more than what you were doing, you're not going to gain anything. right? You're essentially losing money and just being lazy.
Yeah. So bringing somebody on,
Correct.
you're doing it to plan for
the next growth stage.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you without that person,
Yep.
you're probably not going to reach that next growth stage because you just don't have the time and
Correct.
the resources to be able to
You
do
only
it.
have so much time.
But
So I mean,
I would give this advice to anybody because it's not for everybody to do this. If you want to spend more time with your family, it is definitely worth. And I would have, if I had to go back and start again, and let's say I just stayed independent, and I was making a few $100,000 a year, I would definitely spend 50 or 60,000 of it to pay somebody to take up 90% of my time, because I'd rather go spend that time with my family. It's way worth it. That's a good trade-off. You do the math in 10 years span, you get 10 years with your family, costs you $600,000 in 10 years, and you got a tax deduction for it. How can you lose, right?
right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
It's always a big picture plan for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's what do you want to do at the end of the day?
yeah, and you look at people, if you look at Elon Musk, he's a good example. I know we
We
mentioned
talk about that
Yeah.
cryptocurrency and real estate in a minute.
And but you look at Elon Musk, right? He has SpaceX, he has Tesla, he has the Tesla solar panels. He's doing like the internet, all the satellites out there. He's got his tunnel out in California. He has all these different things that he's doing. You can't think that this guy actually does everything is leveraged out. He has now people running every division and everything. He's just now the big picture guy. It's no different than Jeff Bezos. Any of these big people, they're just the big picture people now, kind of sitting back. They've leveraged out all their time. If Elon really just wants to sit at home all day and not do anything, he will still make all that money because he set the pieces up in a way that he'll always have these people and that are going to continue to grow and do this stuff and manage all these things for him, all the pieces of the puzzle. And that's, again, what you're saying, leveraging to the point where you don't really have to be involved that much.
Yeah, and I think like in Elon's case and a lot of bigger groups or businesses, they become the vision of it, and everybody's kind of just running with that vision. And I think that's really important. And the thing with scaling is if you're not going to scale, you will eventually have turnover. Unless you find the perfect employee that's super happy at that salary or that hourly pay, you're going to eventually have turnover because you will get qualified people like Jesse or Eugene who are qualified. Maybe they might not have that exact degree for that job, but they're obviously very well qualified to do this position. And they're going to want to grow. And you kind of want to watch them grow, right? You don't want to just say, all right, I'm going to go become this big millionaire, and you're going to sit in the same apartment that you were in for the last 10 years, and I'm just going to go blow all my money and have a good time and grow it and make my family very wealthy and huge, put my kids in private school, but yet you're suffering. You can't do that, right? So that's
A
another...
good leader doesn't want to do that.
No, you don't want to do it. And that was another
just
big
kind of demonstrating what's important for good
Correct.
leaders. Yeah.
That was another big push for us because it's like, well, they do become like your family and you want to see them do well. How do you do that? You have to just keep growing. There's no options, right? So any business that I'm involved in, at least, or I try to be, sometimes you get your partnerships where they might not think that way, but for the most part, you just want to scale it because you do have people that are constantly coming into the business and they want to do better. And I've lost people before because somebody paid more. It's not a great feeling. It's really not, because you know that was a talented person. Maybe you just weren't. I might have not been there yet to be able to afford them, but they were talented. They would have done really good with my company long term. But of course, they got to think about their families and their needs. It's totally understandable.
It's just part of life. It's just going to happen. I think it's something that, like you said, you have to be mentally and I guess physically prepared for it.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that you might have to just deal with at any given moment. So you having two major people to delegate to is probably a key play. So that if one person does, get married and go on vacation or whatever the case is, you've got that one other person that you can rely on to carry on for you.
And they're not the only ones, right?
And
They're just the ones that are really kind of the key pieces now running.
They're managing, so one of them is really focused. One of them delegates to the agents and to the staff, and one of them really just delegates to the agents only. And we got a third person that's lined up in training that's going to be that next key player, because as you keep growing, you're going to need more big management key players involved. Right. So we've already got somebody lined up that doesn't know it yet. I mean, seems like she's going to be here for life, but that doesn't know yet, but she's already showing signs of a good character as a manager or somebody responsible.
Should we hold off on releasing this podcast so that she doesn't hear?
Oh, she wouldn't even know it if she heard it. She wouldn't know it if she heard it.
Never guess.
Yeah. But, that person's ready, willing, and able, right? Just like a buyer. So that's kind of lined up for the next couple of years, and we're seeing that person is going to take a major key role, and we're already training that person on how to train other people. It's because we saw the talent in her. So when she started, we're like, all right, yeah, it's going to be another good one because they'll need more leverage.
Yeah. So one thing I feel like we're getting to the point where I can get into this, and something I've wanted to ask for a while, even outside the podcast, was you've expanded to Austin, Texas. You have a few agents down there, right? Obviously, that's another avenue of where you're going to start to grow and expand. What does that look like, and what's your plan on that? Are you planning to expand to more places? Like, what's the vision outside of just here? Because you have 20 plus agents here.
Yeah.
What's the vision outside of
I think
Michigan
if there's anything I learned about expansion, it's definitely finding the talent before you expand. Austin was a total coincidence. I know it's big on the map. I'll be honest, when my buddy was down there, he used to work with me in real estate. We grew up together. We went to high school together. He's the reason why we did Austin. He must have known something about Austin before I did. I was so under a rock working. I never even heard of Austin. I mean, I've heard of it, but I was
not to that context.
Not to that context. 3-4 years ago, I was like, why the hell would you move? What is that, in the middle of the boonies? I had no idea what it was. I mean, I knew KW had their international headquarters in Austin.
You clearly didn't have a lot of Californian friends that relocated there.
No, and the funny part is I really never paid attention that I knew KW was in Texas. I never had paid attention that they were in Austin, Texas. I never went to Mega Camp, right? So it was funny because after we opened it, I was like, he started sending me videos, and I'm looking it up. I'm like, holy smokes, this is like the next LA, right?
Right.
And you would have never known. And then, of course, I got into business with KW again and ended up going into a partnership. I ended up going down to Austin, and everything just fit right together. But the plan there is we just leased out another building here that we're putting an expansion into because we're obviously outgrowing our current location here. And then this year we're going down there and we're going to look for a building down there, expand there, because now I have to kind of make it more presentable. I've got 3 guys down there. We're running ads to recruit, but we're like, where do we put them? The brokerage is out of space. It's literally, they got 900 and some agents. Right. They're out of space, you know. So we're going to have to go down there. We're going to have to rent something. Again, you're risking money, right, for the reward. We're going to rent something. We're going to fill it up with workstations and TVs and printers and start flooding it with employees.
Right.
Yep. Just taking what you're doing here and replicating it.
We're just literally replicating it. Yep.
And it's got to be, the growing pains are going to be quite minimal now because you've gone through so many growing pains. Now, you can now start to place the people in the right spots and build it probably way more efficient.
Yeah. And it's funny because although the world and real estate is going very virtual, I'm seeing that our success is by coming into the office.
I think a lot of people are seeing that because we've seen all the virtual-based brokerages opening up so many brick-and-mortar locations because most people feel that way.
Yeah, especially on a team where you're managing people and you're training them. I really feel a lot of that needs to be in person. Mm-hmm. You can do some of it online, but it's just not as efficient. It's a lot harder to...
I think a commission-based role is completely different versus you being an accountant for a corporate company working from home. It kind of doesn't really matter if you guys hang out or not.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you and I hang out on the team and I say, hey, I talked to a guy who wants to offload a fixer-upper, and you say, I've got the perfect match for that. Well, that's where that pays off immediately.
And I think one of the biggest things is, and I'm sure you guys are still even building it, figuring out and getting better at it, is the consistent motivation that you have to kind of keep up on with all your agents, right? There's just people that or at times people go through kind of these slumps or slow down, and they're not as excited as the team owner and kind of I'm sure the coach and mentor for a lot of these agents, being that person to person or making them, having them come into the office and being able to physically be talking to them face to face. I'm sure that improves a lot. And are you is that what you guys actively do too? Is that kind of that motivation, training and everything combined?
Essentially, that's what Jesse and Eugene do every single day.
Yeah.
It got to the point with me where I still help everybody. I still talk to them. I'm still very involved. It got to the point where I was getting so busy, and there's so many businesses, my family, this business. I wasn't like, I'll look at you cold stone in the face and talk to you and not even know what we're talking about because I'm so gone mentally.
Yeah, you're
sometimes.
just thinking of a million different things.
When you bring on and you leverage people to do that, when you get to that point where you're leveraging people that are just going to be there and they're going to be the moral character and they're handling all the, boosting them up and everything, it made a huge impact on my business because that's what they're doing. They wake up every day that they're going to do that. That's their number one goal. That's their number one focus. They're full time at that. And where when you're investing and you're buying and you're building and you're doing this, your mind's kind of everywhere. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah. You got a lot.
And you said that's their number one goal. And so, how important to you is that keeping the agents on track and focused and motivated?
Oh, we wouldn't even have a business without it.
Yeah. So that's your number one focus.
That's
day in
the
and day
number
out.
one focus. And same with staff. And a lot of people don't look at that. It's like a triangle. So if you got your business, where it's coming from, then you've got your administration, and then you've got your sales. There's these three things have to work together.
Yeah.
If you make one of them really happy and you have no business to give that one, and maybe the staff is not being treated properly in the back end, the administration, they're not. It's going to fall apart.
Right.
All
Somebody's got to give.
three have to be perfectly aligned. Their minds all got to work, which is where characters come into play. Because we interview for W-2 positions and we interview for sales jobs, right? They have to work with our team energy, our atmosphere, because they work together, right? So your sales guys are going to talk to your staff because they have things that need to go back and forth between each other. If they're not treating each other right or something's falling apart, you can have, when you got that many agents, it's 20-something agents they're dealing with, one staff girl's or staff guy's day can be ruined because one person was a jerk.
Right.
And vice versa. Because I've also had bad W-2 employees where maybe they're very negative and ruining a day of an agent. So everybody's got to kind of be on the same page.
How do you combat that situation when you come across it?
We learned it over time. You know, people fall off the board and you bring new ones on and you make sure that they're going to work with what you got and that they're pretty cool and laid back. I don't think we're that hard to get along with. I mean, I'm not. And the
really
people
not.
around me are pretty much the same personality, just a different person.
Right.
So it's like, it makes it pretty easy.
What do you think has been the biggest kind of like key point to keeping everybody happy and motivated on track? Like what's been that?
For sure money, but that's not what keeps them happy. I mean, money makes them come to work. So that's got to be right for sure. That's the first step that's got to be right. And then the second step is obviously the energy, the personality, the atmosphere, the environment. So I put a couple TVs up there and I run Roku music, like, Pandora in the background. If you watch The Office, if you ever come in the morning and see people dialing without music in the background, it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah.
It's like the little things like that, We're having a conversation with them about how they're doing, what they're doing, motivating them, showing them that somebody else did what they want to do. That stuff helps. We'll do little parties, we'll get some drinks, or might have a random Friday calling day and just get some drinks and let everybody have a little bit of fun. You're going to have your old school guys. So I've had people that started with our team that don't come in as much, don't do this as much. They're very independent, but they're still on the team. They're still producing. We still help them all the time. They're just not as involved. That's going to happen as they start to grow and they develop, and maybe they don't need the team as much, but they're still utilizing a lot of things from the team. That's going to happen too. So you're going to have people outgrow.
I think that's a key point. I think that's a huge benefit for a lot of people. Like when we talked about when you first came on and you wanted to get the ball rolling and you're trying to get your business off the ground.
Yep.
If you don't get a mentor or you don't join a team, you don't really get to take advantage of that situation because you're leveraging, right? You're processing, transaction coordination, and things like that. So, I mean, there's a great trade-off for time. So whether the team member comes in or not, you've got some people that just wanted to trade off the time.
And how many agents that you've seen, either once they've left or like maybe they're on your team for a little while or they came to your team and they've been an agent for a while, what do you think that their success or being in your environment, do you think that that's been completely different for them, or you've taken agents that were, they had potential, but they weren't doing anything by themselves or anything like that? They ended up on your team and you took them to the next level, skyrocketed them. Do you see that happening pretty frequently, and that's why people end up on your team, or how's that played out?
That might not be why they end up on my team, but I've seen I'll go into a couple details about this. I've seen some people do better than others, but honestly, it all boils down to what that person wants to do at the end of the day. We can push them, and we do push them, and they'll do good. But I've had an agent, for instance, we just closed on a flip yesterday. The guy started with me 2 years in the business, made $176,000 on his cut after the team split, and then went and bought a bunch of rental properties. He's now like basically part-time selling on the team. He'll buy a flip here and there. He's kind of grown into other things that he likes doing. He does a lot with stocks and stuff like that. So he's not doing me as good personally, but he's doing amazing for himself, and he's happy, right? And then I've seen people come in and complete opposite. They come in, they start to do good, they burn out, or they'll go through a breakup. It's the one thing I noticed when you're in the sales gig or you're handling salespeople is their business is as good as what's happening in their life right now.
Absolutely.
So you got to make sure that you're staying in tune with them, giving them good, not only business advice, and not getting maybe too involved in their life, but hey, what's going on? Let's sit down and talk.
Yeah.
You're going through a breakup or whatever's happening here. Let me give you some advice from somebody that's already been around the block on that part. Okay, here's X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know, because the faster you can get them out of that box of like things are going on, because I've seen people go from making six figures, $100 and some $1,000 a year, to making $25,000 a year because of a life event.
Yeah, seen it too.
And so that's constantly part of it. And on the staffing side as well, I've had to have talks plenty of times with people. It's like, hey, what's going on? Something's going on at home. I don't want to know everything, but we got to fix it because you're bringing that to work.
Yep.
So it's a constant. You know, I've learned that's one of my things that I've underestimated in this business is people are not robots. They have their own lives.
Yep.
They don't have your life. They have their own life.
Yeah.
So they have to live their way. So that's one of the battles that we've gone through. But I've seen a lot of people do really, really well. I've seen people come in, do well, then do bad. And then I've seen a lot of back and forth. Doing really well financially, coming down a little bit, talk to them, get them back up. Coming down a little bit, talk to them, get them back up. I've seen it all across the board so far. And I mean, it's a small scale to choose from, but I mean, I've seen it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also seen people come in and we're like, these guys are going to be rock stars.
And they flop.
And then just flop. Don't show up, ignoring text messages. You know, we got one like that right now. But you can only do your best.
Yeah.
You can only do your best,
Yeah,
right?
because really at the end of the day, it's up to them what they're going to want to, how far they want to take their life and advance it. This is just, I mean, it's like anything else. You can walk in and you can complain that it's horrible, or you can walk in and go, okay, I'm going to build a plan, and in 3 years, I'm going to have a different life. And that's a lot of this. You see a lot of that in this business.
Yeah. And that's, you know, kind of how we talked earlier. There's no ceiling here, right? It's in the sales game.
Yeah.
There's really no ceiling. Like if somebody came in, started doing amazing, started making six figures, learned everything they could from you, and was like, hey, you know, if I can't, like, they may even hit your ceiling, and you're, because they're working in a team, they may eventually hit a ceiling.
Correct,
I'm sure you've seen it, where they're
Yep.
like, hey, I gotta expand. Like, you know, I've learned everything, it's been amazing, but I think I can go and do this
Build
on
it
my
on their
own
own.
and build it on my own.
Sure.
I'm going
Yeah.
to.
Right.
And that's, you know, I think when you create a system like that, to me, personally, that's one of like the best compliments you can get, is somebody
Yep.
growing so much that they outgrow even what you can give them, right? It's always that, like, people, and I know we talked a little bit martial arts, but in martial arts, you see people that are like, they almost like hide stuff, or they're like, you know, I don't want to teach you this move
Yeah.
or anything like that, because I want you to do this against me, or, you know, I don't want you to be better than me. And it's like this, but the true great teachers are the ones that are like, I want you to be better than me. I want you to, you know, compete with me. And to me, I'm a very competitive person in terms of, like, you know, I'll give you everything I can and everything that, like, I know. Hopefully you're as good as me or get better than me, so you push me even further, because I don't want to lose, and I don't want to be worse. So, but there's definitely those opposites. But it seems like you guys have set up a system that's very encouraging of, like, just grow. Like,
Yeah.
we're here to help.
I mean,
grow, yeah.
and that's why we're always growing. I expect you to grow.
Yeah.
Because we're going to keep growing. We're not going to stop growing. So, you know, if you get one guy that's great and they go out and build it on their own, I mean, we're going to keep going too, you know. And by the way, the first thing I'd say is, how much do you want on an investment? I'm coming in. And I think that'll be our next step a few years from now, is as we start to grow, you do the math on all these expansions, and you're like, you know what, it might be a good idea to eventually take on some debt or an investment.
Yeah.
You know, I can see it to scale, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is there's always the next level, and the next level brings its own new problems and it's new solutions that you have to do that you haven't seen before. And even though you've gotten this far, expanding bigger and bigger, you know, it's not easy, but it's like you said, you can't stop now. Like
there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, man. You're too big into it now, right? You're too big into too far.
Yeah,
you got to just keep rolling with it, and like you said, for the people, for you to stop where you're at and stay stagnant, you're not helping anybody that you care about on your team, the friends that you've made, the people that you've built up. You're not doing them any favors by just staying where you're at.
Correct.
Right. And that's I think one of the big keys is you can't expect people to continue to grow, especially with you, if you don't continue to grow yourself.
Titleosity is an innovative title and escrow services company with a powerful operations team ramped up and ready to work for you. For your convenience, we cover the entire state of Michigan, offer mailaways and alternative closing options to best fit your clients' needs. Let us know how we can help build your business and make you shine all the way to the closing table. Now, over the years, our realtor partners have appreciated us, keeping them informed on the title process. Please reach out anytime that you may have any questions about the title process. We will work hard for you and your clients, and we would love the opportunity to team up. Contact Dawn Burdick at 248-761-1031 anytime.
You got to keep jumping.
Yep. Got to keep.
So you're going to take any offers from any buyers with Bitcoin on any properties anytime soon?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, we were just talking about that, but I still got a lot to learn about this whole cyber currency.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing right now is it's getting so much traction in the news and stuff that the cryptocurrency is. I think it's a good thing in a way that people are learning about it more. Like people are starting to like, hey, what is this?
Crypto,
what's going on?
I'm calling it cyber. See how bad I am?
But like I was saying, I told you there was a listing I saw the other day, and it's like a $4 million listing, says accepting Bitcoin, and
that's crazy.
You know,
I mean, it sounds cool.
It's different.
It's different, and I don't know everything about it, and I'm fairly novice at it, and I think most people are, but it's becoming more and more relevant. It's becoming more and more accessible, and I mean, it's taken 10 years now or so for it to become something as big as it is right now. But
you know it pretty well. What's going on with it?
I follow it a little bit. Like I'm not nothing crazy about it or whatever, but I've been following it kind of for some years and trying to understand as much as I can about how it works and how it operates. But there's just so much more than even I comprehend.
It's getting to the point where I'd literally pay somebody to teach me the A to Z to it.
Oh, don't worry, there's a bunch of those guys on Facebook right now.
Well, I think we're still in like the early stages of it. You know, even though like Bitcoin's worth $50,000-$60,000 a coin, and everybody's like, man, I could have bought it at $1. Well, everything's always hindsight, but you know, that's what's it going to look like in 10 years from now? Is it going to be like you have 3 different NBA teams that are accepting Dogecoin as payment, so I can basically pay for my tickets or my season tickets with Dogecoin because they're accepting a cryptocurrency as payment. Although Tesla just today or yesterday tanked Bitcoin a little bit from they're saying they're not going to accept it anymore, but that was because they said how people are using or like mining it at home and stuff like that because it ends up burning fossil fuels and they're not using like solar energy to use their computer equipment and all the stuff that they're doing. You know, it's Tesla was taking it. All these companies are slowly, you know, there's a petition right now. I saw it was like 500,000 people or something like that have signed for Amazon to start taking cryptocurrency as payment. So it's only a matter of time, right? It's only a matter of, it hasn't gone away. People thought 3 years ago, I remember having this conversation with people like, it's just a fad. It's going to die. And now there's like legit companies and legit people saying this is the real deal. It's here to stay. This is the next wave of things. And it's no different than a lot of stuff. You know, people
But essentially you can take that and convert it into any currency in any country that you're at, right?
You can essentially, yeah. And I think the theory behind it or the idea behind it is that it's not, it's not bound by any country or any country's currency.
What do you think it looks like in 20 years?
In 20 years, Man, that's hard to say because you have a lot of this stuff that, like the NFT, I think the biggest hurdle, personally, I've seen the biggest hurdle with it all is accessibility and understanding. When more people understand what it is, how it works, how it operates, it'll become more accepted by a wider range of people. And then I think accessibility in terms of like, I have a credit card, can pay straight from my crypto to you in X amount of crypto. It's not as accessible in terms of being able to just pay for things, like walk up to, a store at Kroger.
And there's a ton of different versions of this, right?
Well, that's the other problem is it's eventually going to, I think, have to come down to a set one. One's going to end up having to win for it to like really be fully accepted, or a handful will be like the main ones that are accepted. But yeah, you can create a cryptocurrency in your basement. Basically, you understand how to do it, and you can kind of like create one on your own, like build a website and build some stuff. And that's the tough thing right now. Again, is I just don't think there's no regulation to it. It's just kind of open to everything. But Tesla bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Like that's a pretty serious statement to say to invest in Bitcoin. Now, because of its thing, I read this thing about their taxes and stuff. There's some tax things that they can do on it if they gain or they lose on it. So it's more of a tax scheme, it seems like.
Yeah,
but also
into their research and development.
But also, Elon right now, he's got control of this whole. He's got crypto, essentially by the balls right now. Like his tweet tanked Bitcoin like 20% in a day. Like his tweets about Dogecoin increased it by 50% in a day. So like he has this control of the people buying and selling these cryptocurrencies just from his tweets and stuff. So that's where I personally think it's still like a kind of a dangerous thing. But again, I think that's just because it's not so widely accepted yet that we can use it on everything. But at the end of the day, somebody explains to me, if you like a dollar, paper dollar, gold coin, it only has value because you and I agree that it has value, right? Like it's just a piece of paper. I can burn it with a lighter. Like it only is worth $1 because you say it's worth $1. I say it's worth $1. You say, I'll pay you $10 an hour to work for me. I accept the 10 of those dollars. And then it works because Kroger says this gallon of milk, I'll accept $3 for it. It works because everybody's in acceptance of this currency.
Yep.
And that's the only thing that's holding cryptocurrency back is the acceptance of it. So as soon as everybody is okay with this being a currency, we're in the digital realm. It's not going away. So if everybody's okay with this digital currency, it can foreseeably replace modern day currency for the fact that all you technically need, like we used to trade chickens, we used to trade leather hides, like that was a currency in itself, right? It's no different than anything. I could trade you pieces of, or I could trade you rocks, a certain type of rock, and as long as you say it's worth what I say it's worth, it's a currency.
Yep.
So there's
right
so much.
Lumber's a currency.
Yeah, lumber's a currency, but there's so much to it, and it's going to be interesting these next 10 years, and it's getting involved in real estate. It's people, like I said, I saw that listing. People are buying and selling. I hear it's really popular in New York. I have a friend who has a brokerage in New York, and people are like buying these $1 million properties in New York City with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency left and right. Like it's being very actively used in some of these more heavy populated areas.
That's interesting.
So
It is.
it's only a matter of time, I think. I really do believe it's only a matter of time, and only time will tell. But 20 years from now, we might not be using any sort of paper dollars anymore. So it's just too new to really say what we can do with it. But it is safer than any other transfer of money. So in terms of like the security of it. So we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll definitely see.
Definitely,
We'll
man.
see.
Crazy.
Crazy times. We're living in crazy times.
Yeah, that's my
Gas shortage. There's Chick-fil-A sauce shortage. Yeah. All these shortages. It's deadly.
Yeah.
But I think everything's going to be fine. So keep the noise out. Focus on the good. And enjoy the podcast.
Keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So before we leave you with this, and we ask everybody, in your time in real estate and life to this point, 2 kids, kid on the way, figuring everything out still, growing, expanding, what's the one thing you've learned that if you just had to give a piece of advice to somebody on their growth, whatever it is, something you want to leave anybody listening to this with that you've learned? What's one thing? It can be as simple or as in-depth as you want, but...
Wow.
Like Gary Keller's one thing. You wouldn't have been here today without that.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
Stay focused.
There's probably too much to say on that one.
Yeah, that's definitely a loaded thing. The focus is for sure kind of a...
I think what you're trying to describe is stay focused beyond all of the looking at the numbers for 6 months and then analyzing how much you've actually given people, which was worth more than the money that you could have made. Yeah. Realizing bigger things, better things that are related to you evolving and growing.
Yeah. Well, I think
like once you mature, that type of a business and mindset, that's something that you just have to be in that place to know.
Yeah.
What that means.
If I'm following, because I've known you for a while, stay focused in terms of like not quitting basically on what your goals are, what you're working on.
Yeah, now that I'm rethinking your question, I do have something to say, actually. If I had to go back, it would be, do a lot of research, figure out what you want in your life, and that includes your family. Do you want to grow a family? What do you want to do for work? Understand it. Watch a lot of content or read a lot of content from people that have already done it, and try to set a system in place. I know it's not one thing that I'm telling you guys.
Right. Yeah. It's an important thing, though. It's a very important thing.
Yeah, because if I had to go back and do this again from scratch, like if I went back to 2009, YouTube was still around, and there was a lot of content. I mean, it's not as much content as today.
Yeah,
there was access to a lot of material, and people that have done this, don't try to recreate the wheel. You can be classic and recreate once you already understand what's going on.
That's right.
But if I went back and started all over again, I'd be like, okay, what do I want to do? I'd budget my hours towards it. I'd understand it more. What I think most people do is they just run every day, whether it's with their family or their work or whatever, and they don't really understand where they're running. That was something I learned from Tom Kotzian, who was a coach and a team leader here before he passed away from COVID. He played in the 1950s. I'm sure Doug Andrews knows what it was that I listened to. But the guy said when you sail on your ship, you got to know where you're going. And most people don't.
Yep.
So if you have a better understanding of that, or at least a little understanding of that, you'd be able to set sail faster, farther, understand where you're going.
Yeah. Well, it's like
focus on the items that matter.
What's that quote from, who's the cat from Alice in Wonderland? When she said... asked him for directions, whatever, and he said, "Well, where are you going? Where are you going?" She said, "I don't know." And he's like, "Well, then any road will take you there." Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
if you really don't have your end goals in mind.
Yeah.
But that again, that kind of is to like the focus thing. Like, if you don't pick your goals, what's your focus really on other than all around?
They don't ask you make a vision board for no reason, so you stay on track by looking at it.
Whose vision board doesn't have a Lamborghini on it though? Like. I don't think anybody... Yours doesn't have a Lamborghini? Everybody's, I feel like, has some sort of supercar on their vision board, though. But, yeah, no, that's great advice. And, obviously, you like you said, if you went back, that'd be... So I'm sure you're kind of late in the game, and you're having to start from already down the line and restructure and probably to some degree kind of paving your own path. Mm-hmm. And... because you might have been not on the right path initially.
Well, you could have saved a lot. I could have saved a lot of hours.
Yeah, yeah. That's the big thing is the not planning and not researching, like you said, and just jumping in. There's a point you definitely have to jump in, but if you didn't learn how to swim first, or do any sort of research on how to swim, and you jumped right into the deep end, you either figure it out sometimes or you might drown. So,
correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
So, but awesome. Well, we've loved having you on.
Thanks, guys.
This was fun, Charles.
A lot. Yeah, it's always fun talking to you and been a blast. So
yeah, thanks for having me. I'll be back one day again.
Nice little tribute to Tom Kotzian as well. Thanks again for that.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. Listening to What I've Learned podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, on any pretty much platform that's out there that plays podcasts.
Yep.
So follow us and like us, and thank you for sharing this podcast with your family and friends. And we'll see you on the next episode.